I'm glad you're here because today we're diving into something that could save you a ton of money and stress: your car's suspension. I've seen firsthand what happens when drivers ignore the small stuff, things that seem harmless at first but lead to serious issues. We're talking about over 3,600 suspension overhauls and more than 1,300 cases of broken control arms. The good news? You don't have to be a pro mechanic to avoid these problems. In this video, I'll walk you through 10 practical, straightforward tips that can make your suspension last much longer, possibly even indefinitely. Some of these tips involve tools that cost less than $15. Others only take 5 minutes and a flashlight. But trust me, each one matters. Don't skip any of them, especially not the one about cold weather. It's a mistake even experienced drivers make all the time, and it can cost you dearly. So, let's get into it. Tip number 10 is all about protecting the rubber seals in your suspension system. These rubber parts, like bushings and seals, are often the first to wear out. Suspension components are designed to last between 50,000 and 100,000 kilometers, but rubber parts degrade faster because they're vulnerable to weather, heat, and just plain aging. Even if you take care of your car, time alone will cause these parts to dry out and crack. Here's where an old-school mechanic trick comes in: a product called AT205 Reseal. This isn't something you'll find in your car's manual, but it works wonders. It's a special polymer that keeps rubber soft and pliable. It's usually added to engine oil to stop internal leaks, but you can also use it on suspension parts for amazing results. Here's how to do it. First, remove your tire to access the suspension area. Then, pour the AT205 Reseal into a spray bottle. Lightly spray it over every visible rubber component. Focus especially on the power steering boot, the CV axle, the torsion bar, and the top of the strut. Don't forget the rubber bushings on your control arms. Those are critical. Just a light mist is enough, and you'll be giving those parts a second life. You will save a lot of money if you have these parts on hand. For instance, it might be costly to change the lower control arm bushing since it is difficult to reach. Fixing two will cost at least $1,300, and if it's a fancy automobile, much more. It will take a few hours to spray the rubber seals once or twice a year, but the effort is worthwhile. If you continue doing the next thing, though, this will be the least of your troubles. The 9th secret is to stop mistreating your vehicles. There is no benefit to driving like a crazy person, especially on bumpy roads, unless you have a $3,000 emergency fund for your vehicle. That is a simple method of wearing down your coil spring. In one test, coil springs wore down after 1,148 cycles on a tough road to give you an idea of how awful it is. On a level road, how many cycles did it take until it broke down? 19,060. Simply put, your coil spring will fail in less than 2 years if you travel on a bumpy road twice a day. However, it will endure for 26 years if you drive carefully on uneven roads or on flat ones. It will cost at least $1,400 to replace all 4 springs. There's more, though. The lower arm suspension is another suspension component that detests bumpy roads. On a difficult road, it will break after 3,580 cycles. However, it will require 11,914,000 cycles on a level road. This implies that if you drive properly, the lower arm can endure indefinitely. You should budget an average of $550 each arm if you need to mend it. You may have to pay $3,600 for repairs every 3 years if you drive on uneven roads. You know what makes it worse, though? Combining it with the subsequent error. The 8th secret is to clear up your trunk of unnecessary items. There are no more spare tires. Almost all new cars in the 1990s had a full-size spare tire. Then the donut appeared. However, just 40% of new automobiles currently come with a spare tire of some kind as standard. It's in the United States. That number is only 3% in the UK. Automobile makers cite the justification that they are attempting to lighten the vehicle in order to increase fuel efficiency. Rather, tire sealant kits are included with new autos. There is some truth to that, even if automakers are undoubtedly attempting to defraud us. As we covered in our video, 17 fuel-saving myths that waste your money. Having more trash in your trunk results in lower fuel economy. But if you travel on rough roads, you should be more worried about your shocks. Overweight eventually lowers suspension travel by compressing the springs and shocks. This will result in irreversible failure. Repairing your damaged shocks, springs, and bushings will cost thousands of dollars. Worn-out tires, difficult handling of the vehicle, and weak acceleration are further issues. Therefore, get rid of heavy items as soon as you can if you have to carry them. If it's not absolutely necessary, leave them at home, such as a few little extras and an emergency auto repair kit. If you don't, you'll have the following issue. The seventh secret is to never put off wheel alignment. 70% of automobile owners fear that their technician is defrauding them. Wheel alignment is one of the most frequent frauds they avoid. Unfortunately, drivers make bad choices as a result of this anxiety. Because of this, 35% of drivers have acknowledged putting off wheel alignment for more than a month. Your tires and suspension might sustain minor damage in that amount of time. Indeed, the suspension system of your automobile depends heavily on your tires, but we'll talk about that later. Tires don't roll at the correct angles, and treads wear out unevenly when the wheels are misaligned. Wheel bearings and ball joints are subjected to increased strain as a result. However, things worsen. Additionally, misaligned wheels strain the control arms and tie rods. The reason for this is that the car's weight is not uniformly distributed. The struts and shocks are impacted since these components put in more effort to keep your automobile steady when driving. Parts start to break when your suspension geometry becomes out of balance. Your repair fee might range from a few hundred to several $1,000s, depending on how severe the misalignment is. All of this is avoidable with a $150 wheel alignment. Benefit from complimentary wheel alignment inspections each time you replace your tires or change your oil. Keep in mind that a misalignment of even 2 milliliters is problematic. In addition to its many benefits, getting your wheels aligned aids in the next suspension maintenance tip. The sixth secret is to keep your strut mounts safe. One component of the suspension system that is often overlooked is the strut mount. Their primary goal is to reduce noise and vibrations, so you may ride in peace. Naturally, they also secure the struts, which is essential for comfort and handling. Because they are very inexpensive, repairers frequently overlook strut mounts. One is available for $20. Your struts will be the next to be harmed, though, if the rubber boot is destroyed. Although some shops charge over $1,300, a complete strut repair costs at least $800 per axle. Maintaining the strut mount's suppleness is the greatest approach to save money. Now take out your bottle of AT205 and pour a small amount down the strut mount's sides. Once more, this will revitalize the rubber and delay its rapid cracking. Additionally, you must use caution while near potholes. The strut mount may come loose from aggressive driving. It may go unnoticed until you need to jack up your automobile or replace a tire and the mount comes loose. Over-tightening the top nuts is the third main factor that destroys strut mounts. It's a good idea to keep your nuts and bolts tight, but always use the specified torque. Bonus tip: clunks are typical in cold weather. It's probably nothing major if your automobile produces clunking noises while it's cold, but stops after warming up. The cold causes rubber bushings to harden, especially as they get older. The noise normally stops as the car heats up. It's not hazardous, but it's bothersome. The fifth secret is to regularly tighten your suspension bolts. Because suspension bolts are the weakest component of your suspension system, NASCAR pit personnel retorque hundreds of bolts before each race. Although they are not readily broken, vibrations and normal wear and tear might cause them to loosen. They will deteriorate 38% more quickly if you drive on gravel roads or engage in a lot of off-roading. In fact, if your suspension system is designed to last at least 50,000 miles, it may wear out after around 36,000 miles, per a research that was published in the Journal of Automotive Safety. Oh no. Bushings and ball joints will be harmed by driving with loose bolts. and the frame may even break. In addition, it may result in uneven tire wear, alignment problems, and even total part detachment. That's how horrific mishaps occur. Thankfully, there is a simple solution. Have your bolts retightened every time you rotate your tires, which should be done every 5,000 to 8,000 miles. You may have to pay an additional $100 for this, but you might avoid major accidents and save thousands of dollars. The fourth secret: always make your tires happy. Did you know that the size, shape, and alignment of your tires influence how your car's suspension is built? Tires are therefore the most crucial component of your suspension system. They serve as a barrier between your vehicle and the road and are the main shock absorbers. An improperly inflated tire might result in a 35% increase in impact force. More shock is transferred to the passengers and the suspension system as a result. Another issue is that improperly placed tires might shorten the life of your shock absorbers by 30% if you use the incorrect size for off-roading. Generally speaking, your suspension will deteriorate 20% more quickly with badly maintained tires. By the way, improper wheel alignment, which we covered earlier, is not included in that. Because of this, it's critical to maintain your tires at the proper PSI at all times. Both your handbook and the driver's door frame bear this information. Additionally, you should maintain correct wheel alignment and change your tires no more frequently than every 8,000 miles. The third secret is to always rinse off salt. Salt is the only thing that may harm your suspension more than driving on uneven roads. Rust is the result of an electrochemical interaction between salt, oxygen, and moisture. Salt erodes metals, even if there are no visible symptoms of corrosion. Road salt, regrettably, has a bad propensity of creeping beneath your car and corroding your braking and suspension lines. When this occurs, you will have to replace the entire system, which will cost thousands of dollars to fix. This may be avoided with ease. Rinse your undercarriage every week if you live close to the water or in a region with a lot of snow. Take your car to a drive-through with floor-mounted pressure jets if you don't want to do this at home. That can get costly too. Car washes cost $20 a week, which is roughly equivalent to replacing rusted parts every few years. To clean your undercarriage at home, all you need is a water brush, a decent jack, and a pressure washer. These gadgets are inexpensive, but they may save you more than $5,000 on repairs. The second secret is to use high-quality replacement parts. The Federal Reserve reports that 59% of Americans are unable to pay for a $1,000 emergency, which includes auto repairs. Therefore, we frequently choose the least expensive choice when those repairs are necessary. This is particularly valid for suspension components. Compared to aftermarket options, OEM components might be significantly more expensive. For instance, an OEM ball joint costs at least $200, but an aftermarket one may only cost $20. Although saving $180 may seem like a good idea, that isn't how it actually works. Not all aftermarket components fit properly. They may harm other components in addition to breaking again. You'll also have to pay for labor again. For this reason, you should never utilize inexpensive suspension replacement components. Always replace them in pairs and on schedule. Go to a shop right away if your automobile is tougher to control, your ride height has decreased, or you're hearing odd noises. It becomes worse the longer you wait. In addition to lowering ride quality, a malfunctioning suspension may jeopardize your safety, particularly while traveling at high speeds. Minor surface cracks in your car's bushings are usually nothing to worry about, even though they might look alarming at first glance. These small imperfections are common and often appear as the rubber ages. However, some mechanics or dealerships might use these superficial cracks to convince you that your bushings are damaged and need replacing. The truth is, unless the bushings are completely split or causing noticeable noise, there's usually no immediate concern. So don't let a harmless $50 rubber crack balloon into a $1,500 repair bill. A bit of caution and awareness can save you a significant amount of money. Now, let's talk about a lesser-known but critical maintenance check: your power steering fluid. Most people ignore it until steering becomes stiff or difficult. They assume the fluid's only job is to make turning the wheel easier, but that's only part of the picture. Power steering fluid also plays a hidden but vital role in preserving your suspension components. It helps protect parts like steering knuckles, control arms, and tie rods by reducing friction and preventing excessive wear. Without proper lubrication, these components begin to break down, leading to costly repairs. In particular, ball joints and tie rods rely on this fluid to stay stable and function smoothly. When the power steering system isn't working as it should, more stress is placed on control arm bushings and strut mounts, potentially damaging them over time. Think of the power steering fluid as a silent guardian. It might seem insignificant, but it protects equipment that would cost you thousands to replace if it fails. To keep your system in top shape, check the power steering fluid at least once a month. Make sure it's clean and filled to the proper level. If the fluid is dirty or contaminated, it becomes dangerous. At operating pressures of up to 1,400 psi, that fluid acts like a high-powered cutting agent, slicing through hoses, damaging seals, and wearing out bearings. Different vehicles have different maintenance schedules, but as a general rule, you should replace your power steering fluid every 3 years or every 50,000 miles, whichever comes first. If you frequently drive on rough or unpaved roads, you may need to change it even more often due to increased stress on the suspension system. Staying ahead of this simple maintenance task can prevent premature wear and help your vehicle run smoothly for years to come.